Hello everybody, this is Antonio Wolf. Just want to make a new video, obviously. Here walking with my little buddy over in some new hills today. I like to give him a variety on his walks, so I try not to take him to the same place every day. I want to do a bit of a expansion on my video responding or making comments on my live stream with Chad Hegel from the Chad African YouTube channel, the one about systems and peak oil. And I wanted to just make a quick expansion about something I thought about mentioning but I forgot about mentioning in that video, which is that if you watch it, Chad brings up questions of, well, isn't there something more fundamental than system? Kind of we talk about form or substance in the Aristotelian sense as being more fundamental. Obviously, his prime example of interest is oil in relation to the system of industry, the system of capital. And one thing that I thought was happening in that conversation was obviously we're talking past each other. What Chad talks about with form and substance is what in my Hegelian lingo, as I comprehend it, is what I call condition. And that is that, oil is a condition for industry, for industrialism, at least big time mechanical industrialism. And it's not just oil, it's fossil fuels in general. We were using coal before we were using oil. So it's not just oil. So fossil fuels are, Chad would say, the form or the substance of our industrial societies, and I would say they are the condition. But the question that remains, is the condition outside of the system? And in one way, it would seem so. It would seem that we have the system of capital, the system of industry, which just keeps on churning itself out of itself, but hidden beneath it is its condition, fossil fuels. Which it does not take into account for, just takes for granted. And there is a way to comprehend it that way, in which we would say that simply given that the conditions for the existence of a system are there, that system will exist. If the conditions for life exist, life will probably exist. It's possible. But take away that condition and the system is no longer possible. Well, that's an obvious problem. But what I would like to say in response to that is that in the Hegelian analysis of systems, that condition is subsumed. That condition is part of a system subsumed into the higher system, such that if we comprehend things in the Hegelian system, a rational industrial society which comprehends its system would likewise comprehend the systems on which it depends. The systems of its conditions. Therefore, it would comprehend that oil is limited, that fossil fuels are limited, and that it either has to properly ration those things out, or speed quickly on its way to replacing it with something else. And I have no doubts that there are replacements for fossil fuels at all. Plenty of things in our reality point to that. You would have to look a lot on the weird side of fringe science to come up with something like that. And of course, none of these things are major scale, operations of knowledge. But there's definitely weird anomalies which could be investigated further because they seem to point to there being other alternative forms of energy which we could look into. Which would in a way be clean. They would require us to be messing around with nature in new ways, which would cause their own disruptions. But hey, part of living is that you don't know what works and what doesn't until you actually do it. You can't theorize reality in your head. Another point that I wanted to make on that is that talking about how the system if it was comprehended as the system that it was, would include comprehension of the lower systems. Here's a comment on how Hegelian systems work. If you ever read a work by Hegel, you notice that there is a buildup, there is a development upward from the simple elements we begin with towards the final elements of the absolutes that we end with. And what Hegel does with systems, oh, sorry, my dog has something stuck in his little paw. You okay? You okay? Okay, seems he's okay now. So anyways, yes, where was I going? Yeah, that in the Hegelian systems there's a buildup of the systems, and you can comprehend every concept that Hegel deals with as its own system. Being a nothing is a system. That system is the system of becoming. That is the unity that it comprises, which produces itself endlessly. But then that system is subsumed as a moment in another system, and it's subsumed in a moment of another system, and it's subsumed as a moment of another system. Hegelian philosophy is a system of systems of systems of systems of systems. It is a system of systems. It is the systematization of the system of systems. The concept of the conceptualization of concepts. Pretty weird. It's hard to wrap your hand. It's wrap. Sorry, getting a bit tongue twisted. It's hard to wrap your mind around it at first. I remember when I first had my initial thoughts on this. When I started to get a grasp on it, there were moments in which comprehending this seemed to be approaching eerily close to some sort of Cthulhu-esque reality. It's like you're figuring out something from the Necronomicon or something. You're not supposed to know this. It feels that weird. But also was a hell of a high. I'm not much of one to do drugs simply because drugs don't seem to have much effect on me. I've smoked cigarettes, don't feel a thing. I smoked weed, don't feel a thing. I've hit a bong. Whatever that high is, it's not worth. It's not good enough for me to spend 10 minutes, coughing my lungs out. Don't see the value in that. Alcohol, don't care. But Hegel, holy shit! I can't tell you how many times I've gotten high off Hegel. That high that you get when you figure something else out that, it's like you've been racking your head around, breaking your head on for a week or so, a couple days. It's just a rush. It's fantastic. Not just with Hegel, with anybody. When you get that moment where a philosopher clicks and you get their logic and all of a sudden everything just starts making sense, it's come on, man, holy shit. Can't get better than that. You're high, and not just for 10 minutes or half an hour. You're high all day. You might be high for a week. It's that good. So my drug of choice is philosophy. Give me a book by Plato, Descartes. Those people are gonna get me high. Probably not analytics. Analytics tend to bore the hell out of me. Though there are good analytics, surely. They just write terribly. But you can't blame them. It's just a style. If you can get to the core of them, there's something of value to be gotten from quite a bit. Where was I going with that? I don't remember. Yeah, the system of systems. When you understand that that's the way Hegelian philosophy works, Hegelian concepts and systems are actually kind of the realization of Taoism. If you ever heard of, Lao Tzu, God knows how many pronunciations people have for that in English. White people make your mind up. I don't want to learn Chinese to learn how to properly pronounce these names. But anyways, it's a principle that comes from from Taoism, where it's the idea that the government that rules best is the government that does least. That is that if why would you bother trying to impose order uh, if nature will just do things itself? Why tell the river how to flow if the river can just flow by itself? If you're gonna be making anything, just put yourself in line with nature, and nature will do the rest. Take the path of least resistance, basically. Don't work against nature. So, Hegelian systematic philosophy basically works on this. If this concept seems to be necessary, why are you going to be racking your head against it? Just work with it. Fine. You may not like it, but work with it. Give it a place, and let it do what it does, and you will find that it will do some pretty good things. Philosophically and realistically. This idea. We nowadays have this idea of, particularly communist, and people were hippies, and wish that we just went back to the good old days in which we just weren't selfish assholes. What's wrong with you? Okay? Poor little guy. He's chose a bad side of the canal, and there's a gravel, and obviously it's not comfortable for him to walk on. Should have paid more attention. Oh, seems like he has something stuck on his foot. So, sorry about that. To put it in just like a logical form, being turns out to be false. But it's also necessarily true to an extent. It's limitedly true. Well, let it be true insofar as it is true. You don't have to go, oh, well, being failed, let's get rid of it. Everything's becoming. Well, becoming includes being. You build from what's real. We build from what's true. If you need the soil to grow your plants, to grow your crops, to feed your animals, to feed you, it's probably best that you let nature do what it does, within the system that you've got. Give it its place, and things should be all right. Sometimes nature needs a bit of nudging, but hey, that's fine. Probably the most concrete explicit example comes from economics, actually, where fine, we're going to have property. There's some reasons for why property is a legitimate institution. I'm not going to try to bother defending that here, but suffice to say that I think Hegel has a pretty damn good case. So we live in a time in which property is on our minds, and you're not about to get rid of it. Every time you try to get rid of it, it doesn't end very well nowadays. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go. You're having a bad time, dog. Come on. So you're not going to get rid of it. So what do? Well, if people are bent on it, just limit it. Give it a place within the system. Let the logic just play out, but limit its consequences. Put it within a context in which it won't self-destruct. This is not always a good idea. Sometimes you shouldn't give things that kind of space. You know, you should let them self-destruct and you know, get out of the world. But you know, assuming that you have a system in which you want to build off certain things, that's what you got to do. And in that way, you don't fight what is there. Rather, you just kind of shape it, nudge it a little bit, you know, within the confines of a system. So anyways, not to make this too long, that was it.